It was the phone call. My blood ran cold when she told me that I was poisoning water systems. And I really believe her. I just couldn't continue. The special thing about this property is it sits on a huge aquifer called the Arbuckle-Simpson Aquifer. Water is always a limiting factor because you can grow grass, but unless they have between 25 and 30 gallons per animal per day to drink, you cannot have animals. There was a conservation service that reached out to me for lunch. And they suggested that we were one of the 3 largest polluters in the state in our aerial spraying. So this going north is the Blue River, going south is Pennington Creek. Pennington Creek is the only water supply for Tishomingo. So it didn't matter what direction was coming off the ranch. We were draining somewhere and we were polluting something. And we were damaging the Blue River by what we were doing here. And would I consider doing something different? And that was a really sobering conversation. I suggested to my husband that there might be another way. And he said, have at it, you just try. So that was about 10 years ago. I'm Susan Bergen, and we are at the Bergen Ranch in Sulphur, Oklahoma. And yeah, it's a windy high spot. So I am the third of 4 children raised by an industrialist who had factories outside of Boston, and my mother worked for the Sierra Club. So what they produced was industrial conservationists in me. And I was a stockbroker, and I married a customer here in Oklahoma, and he was a cowboy. And I really knew nothing of agriculture. I love flowers, but I knew nothing about agriculture. So it was a wonderful 40-year journey into agriculture. I didn't understand the soil concepts, and I knew that he only wanted grass. There were trees here when we bought it. He would aerial spray it every year, and the trees are all gone. Taking the trees out of the waterway had really changed the filter for the waterways, and we just had a monocrop of grass. So that was my first foray into ranching. So when he was running it, I would just occasionally, I would come down when they worked cattle, was kind of Mrs. Bergen. I was not involved. I didn't know what it took to have a ranch. Ignorance was bliss. I didn't know what the grasses were. I didn't know what any of the plants were. I didn't know any of it. So I had, in 2003, Noble was the first time they worked with me at my peach orchard. I also reached out to the Kerr Foundation, which is another soil health project. And then there's a man, Greg Scott, who's the state soil scientist with the Conservation Service. So all 3 of them have helped me in different ways to learn about the system. And the NRCS in Texas published a book on range plants. And each plant has the value, what it does for the system. So I really started to learn what the system was and what was going on here. I'm always trying to change the landscape, and the herd is the byproduct. So because I'm a plant person, I innately like plants. So Jeff Goodwin asked me to do, and Hugh Aljo, do a inventory of what was here. And that included how many bare acres were on the surface. And there was 200 acres of bare. So if I could just get those 200 acres to grow something, think how many more cows I could have. On the other hand, this was bare ground. And on a day like today, it would be blowing dirt into the air. So what they're continually in dialogue with me about is that we are going in a direction, and the direction is good. So not to focus on what's wrong, but what we're doing right. So that was my first right. Every acre needs to be producing something. And how can I operate so that those acres can heal? So that was my first big, oh my gosh, I can change and have something growing everywhere. There is no recipe for ranching. I'm ranching for what I want, not what I don't want. That's a big change in how I was looking at it. So we stopped and looked at some Indian grass. So this puts more pounds of forage per acre than any other. We had no Indian grass when my husband managed it. This is a preferred grass by the cattle, and so they would eat it until it was gone. So this has all come back from seed from when I took over. Hugh suggested that I take my fence and cut that big Indian grass plot in half so that the animals could take some of it to this side and some of it to that side. So that would be expanding the footprint of the best forage. So it's just little subtle things, but it really did expand out the solution, what was going well. We moved the goats to where we want the solution. And then we only pick a certain area because I can't fix 12,000 acres at once, but I can fix 3,000 acres in a year. I've been blessed with great relationships. The data that they've collected and been able to share with me to me, it's life-giving that I can see that I do have the windmills and I'm running more cattle and I have the sheep and the goats and I still have a robust wildlife collection here, or a set of birds. Just from a practical standpoint, if you are poured into like a sponge and then you sit on the counter, pretty soon you stink. So until you squeeze it back out, I don't believe that I'm given this wonderful opportunity to just keep it to myself. I think ranching is difficult. It's capital intensive. I think to be able to support other ranchers to be financially viable and to not be so discouraged. It's been wonderful. So I have a professional cowboy and he knows cattle. He can look at an animal and know 3 days before me that it's sick. It's a profession. Interestingly, on Google Maps, you can run a 35-year history on a property. And when I look at the water, to me, and I'm not getting that data from anybody except for Google. The clean water really interests me because we all got to drink water. Everything depends on water. And we have the ability to change it. I believe that agriculture has to be profitable, that it's not sustainable if it's not profitable. So that's another case study for me. Why do I want 1,600 cows on this piece of property? To be able to, I publish to Noble the data, the financial data here. But for other people that want to be in the ranching industry, how can we help you save money, reduce your cost, and be profitable? So it has to be profitable to be sustainable. All the food and fiber in the world is from the land. It's not coming from anywhere else. And without healthy soil, we don't have healthy cattle or humans. When my husband managed this ranch, they always had cancer in their faces. I think it was from the chemicals that we were spraying for weeds control. I feel a huge obligation to reduce my chemical footprint, my discharging footprint, to do everything I can to clean the water, to hold all the water. The head of the DEQ was at a place that we have south of Norman, and I said, we had a 9-inch rain, and you can come and look by the grass. We did not discharge any water. A 9-inch rain is so much. So I said, it's 1,200 acres. This is how many acre feet it is. It was the math equation. And this is how many millions of gallons of water I held back from the river, which is right next to me. And he said, I don't believe you. I'm like, here's the calculator. You do the math. We all know we had the 9-inch rain. He said, you were right. He couldn't believe that we held that much water. We can really change the system with a few enlightened decisions. And I understand the fear. I also understand the fear of lack of acceptance from your peers. It's real. And I too want to be accepted by my peers. My neighbors say, you have money, it's easy for you. And I think anytime we're trying to separate ourselves from one another, we can find evidence to support whatever reality we're talking about. So I think part of it is a female in a male-dominated system. Part of it is, that this is not my sole source of income. So I have compassion on them with those things, but it would not hurt to try. Try something. Divide your pasture in half. Give it some rest. See if you can see any difference in your forage if you gave it some rest. Just try one little thing. We used to have a rig building class that we did out here. And, people would come with every kind of four-wheeler or something. And we would say, we will build anything you want so that you can start electric fencing, because doing it by hand walking is just impossible. And it really started a lot of people down the path. The other thing, I say buying salt one bag at a time. We buy it by the truckload. Come get your salt here. Come get your apple cider vinegar here. Any way we can help you start, we're happy to help you. I shared some of the story of, why am I doing what I'm doing? Somebody was brave enough to tell me, you're polluting. When are we going to become brave and say we're going the wrong direction? Are we going to change because we want to or we're forced to? Why can't we be wanting to? Why are we pretending it's okay to discharge dirt into the air? I think that we have got to rinse and repeat. We've got to show what's working. We also have to show what's not working. If I can share my suffering and alleviate it with you, it would, can I save you from a ditch? I'm really struggling with water, fresh water to the cattle, and it's real. And if I had known that 5 years ago, I could have started planning for that. Instead, you see a 6,000-gallon tanker sitting out there, and he's going to drive that out to cattle. It's so hard to deliver water out that way. I think that there is forward progress, and I think with this administration, instead of being in a silo where the USDA is here, the EPA is here, the nuclear regulatory, they're all just siloed. They've flattened out the silos, and we're all having a conversation. Why do we have a 75-mile dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America, whatever we call it today? What is causing a 75-mile dead zone? Well, 75% of that is agriculture. It takes a team to make the meaningful change. I am not discharging any dirt here today with the wind blowing at 40 miles an hour. That's really a miracle. I'm honored that I get to shepherd this land. It's a privilege. I never feel like I own it. I just feel like I get to shepherd it. And it is the honor of my lifetime, really, to be able to provide clean food to, the families that are eating it.